Hail, fellow GMs, and welcome to another episode of Tabletalk, R&D for greater RP. Today's topic, prepping. How much are you using? Are you using too much? What are you prepping? Is that the right stuff to be prepping? I don't know. Let's talk about it. So you wanted to talk about what to prep and how much to prep.
Yeah, I thought that would be an interesting topic.
I agree. So what do you think is
we
this?
have kind of different perspectives on what to prep and how much to prep.
We probably do. What do you think you should prep and how much time do you think you should spend on it?
Well, I think, first of all, you need to make sure you have stuff for your next session. And that stuff can be fairly short. I grabbed a checklist that I like that was made by Sly Flourish. I don't remember if it was in the Lazy Dungeon Master, if it was something on his website. But it was something by him. By Michael Shea.
Mm-hmm.
And the version of that I use is I took his checklist, his DM prep checklist, and I added to it stuff that I like preparing from some other people that I read.
Mm-hmm.
And what I ended up with is my single session RPG planning checklist is I take stock of the players. Anything that's relevant from their background to what's been going on lately and their motivations. And I just keep that at the top just so that I have that as a quick reference while I'm going through my other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I then do like a session goal of what the players have said they're going to pursue this session. I look for a strong start scene, which is typically like, I'll try to open with something that'll jump them right into something action-y right off the bat, because that seems to get people invested quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
I then do potential scenes. I have been preparing about 13, but that was for like 5-hour sessions, and I seem to only be getting like 3.5-hour sessions, so I'm going to drop that back. It's just potential scenes that could come up related to what they're talking about, and just like a one-line sentence about what's going on. For an improv tool, a quick list of obstacles that could come up. So that's whatever they're working on, things that could get in the way. I don't necessarily use all of these things. This is just sort of like an improv list.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look for 8 fantastic locations. Again, I can probably cut that down to like 5 since I've been having shorter sessions lately. A list of the major NPCs who are relevant, and since I do everything digitally, I'll hyperlink that list to my document that's got notes on major NPCs. I have an intel section, which is the I don't know who I got this idea from, but it's like you should have 10 clues or 10 pieces of information you can reveal to the players about what's going on, and you divorce those from any sort of situation in game where they could come up, and then you just drop them in where they make sense. I don't always go through all of them, but I again, because I was running longer sessions initially, I upped that from 10 to 13. I might drop that down to 8 or 9 because a lot of the time I find I haven't been getting through all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Story beats is another list that I do. Is a set number of things that look like they're going to go after, and then I will make a list of relevant enemies and potential assistants, which is just like based on what they said they're going to do and where they're planning on going. I'll make a list of which stat blocks might be useful from the monster manual. Typically, they're going to be NPCs because I run games with a lot of faction stuff. But that short list will be, where do I think they're going to, what do I think they're likely to need to fight, if anything? If it comes up, I have the stats on hand and I don't have to dig through the whole book. Otherwise, I don't necessarily use them all because, again, improv tools as opposed to linear plots, right?
Right.
And then I make a note of potential assistants, people that they might call on for help. And basically, it's just a list of names. and their NPCs I've introduced throughout the game, or factions I've introduced throughout the game, and I tend to hyperlink that. So if they go to pull up such and such, they want to go get help from the Harpers, and I've got a list of Harper NPCs elsewhere. I'll click on my Harper's link, and it'll bring me to another document that's got all my Harper. And then a list of potential rewards, which would be like treasure, etc., that I might just drop in.
I realize that you game... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and then the only thing after that is I have just a little session went, so I can try to remember for next time, and if I need to change anything, I need to change it.
If I realize you play digitally, but if you wrote all that down and had it on sheets of paper in front of you, how many pages would that be?
Oh, maybe half a page?
All of it?
Well, so I write it down. You mean like if I wrote it down by typing it and printing it, or do you mean like if I wrote it with a pencil?
Either one. If you weren't doing this digitally, if all your players were coming to your house and you were going to keep all that in paper form in front of you...
No, they all do come to my house, and I take my notes in a Word document, so I can tell you how many it is on a page. And it seems to be, looking at my last few sessions, each one is somewhere between 3/4 of a page and a page and a half.
You cram all that onto 3/4 of a page? Wow.
Yep.
I'm really impressed. Here's my prep before most games. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The one where I made it to a page and a half, I had literally a half a page of notes on the plate.
I see.
So,
here's
the actual session stuff has only taken me about 3/4 of a page.
Here's what my prep looks like before game. I have not prepped for next week's game yet. I game tomorrow at 4 o'clock. I bounce ideas off people I know all week. Not my players, everyone else.
Sure.
But as far as stuff that I'm going to write down, I have a couple of core stats from each character sheet and their names, and those things don't change very often. I talk about them with them often enough. I don't need to write down what their motivations are. We already know what they are. It's old news. That's not new.
Okay.
Behind my DM screen... Go ahead.
When I say motivations, I don't mean like their major driving motivations that are going to be consistent throughout the whole session. Mm-hmm. I mean like stuff that they have as immediate goals.
I see. Okay.
Stuff they've expressed that they want to get done in the near future. And then I have that in mind to remember. Okay, what are they likely to go after in this session or next session or whatever.
I see. Okay, I've committed that to memory too. I don't usually write those down. Because they're immediate enough that I don't feel the need to keep a note, or they're long-term enough that everybody at the table knows. I have one exception right now. I have 2 party members that are kind of sort of plotting, not necessarily against the rest of the party, but they don't care if they die. And I'm not going to be more specific than that in case my players listen to this.
Sure.
But my notes behind the screen, I have a custom-made GM screen. It's 2 CD cases, the old plastic jewel casey kind. So if I drop them, they don't shatter and break.
That's itty-bitty.
With a sheet of paper covering it that I can draw onto as different events happen the players love. So when we're done, there's a mural of their important events.
Yep.
Behind that, I have 2 sets of dice and a sticky note, a little pad, like a sticky notepad, that has a bunch of names on it for when I need to pull NPCs out of my butt. That's it. That's all there is to it. That's not true. I also have a notepad next to my GM screen that is bigger, like it's a normal size, the kind of thing you'd keep in your backpack, that I keep notes in about this specific, like, player notes. Like, such and such evolved as a player, and here's evidence. Such and such player metagamed exactly 4 times. Right, that kind of thing.
And that's your stuff that you keep track of for next session or for the whole campaign?
For the whole campaign, that's it. When I get home, I'll make a couple of edits. Like, if I named a character Leopold and his name was on the NPC sheet, I'll cross that name out and create something more meaningful for Leopold when I get home. Leopold is that name is now such and such a character. And I'll rewrite that sheet of names without the name Leopold on it. This means I never use the same name twice unless I want to.
Yep.
And it means that eventually I've written some of those names down so many times, they're in my brain forever.
That makes sense.
That's all there is to it. I keep notes on the players, but I don't really prep a lot ahead of time, except
Now,
in
what do you
just
do?
conversation.
Do you prep anything further in advance, further out rather, for like major themes or factions or anything like that? Because so far the part I've talked to you about is the what do I prep for next session?
Yes, I plan. I plan the plot ahead. I already know how our game is going to end. There are 3, I suppose one could argue 5 possible endings for the campaign. That's it. And the players' actions will decide what they are. But I run closed adventure. I run closed matrix storytelling. The players make the decisions that they think they made, because they did make them and they did carry weight. But decisions they made. For
now,
them.
Here's the part where I think here's the part where we diverge the most, because I don't plan an ending. I don't even consider an ending. I don't even have a set villain.
See, I don't go into it with a set villain in this particular campaign I did, because this story I did not write. It's a Witcher tabletop game. The Emperor Nilfgaard is an easy bad guy, right? I didn't write that story. But most of the time, I don't know.
I'm pretty familiar with the Witcher story, and I gotta tell you, Emperor Emir is clearly the good guy in the story.
See, I don't agree at all. At all.
I was being entirely sarcastic.
I see. I was like, he is so not the good guy. What book did you read?
He's definitely not the good guy. I'm being sarcastic.
But the players. Oh yeah. But yeah, I do a lot of creative brainstorming with my family and friends, my mother, my wife, my friends that don't game at the table, and I'll plan.
When you're brainstorming this stuff, what do you write down?
None of it. None of it.
Okay.
I trust that my brain will remember the stuff that's important. The stuff. If we brainstorm 1,000 ideas and come game day, only 2 of them pop back into my head. Those 2 are worth playing. And we do those 2.
Okay.
But
you don't plan out you said closed matrix storytelling, so you planned an ending. Or you planned a few endings.
I've planned a few endings. It's like a choose your own adventure book. There are various endings, but there are a finite number.
Okay.
And I have a beginning and an end, and a couple of, when I say a couple, I mean like many core important decisions. But the players will make them. But how the story, every great story has to have an ending, or it doesn't, end. And Lord of the Rings is a great tale, but it would get boring eventually if it didn't end. The Sopranos is a great story. It would get
me saying I don't plan an ending doesn't mean that my games go on forever until they just peter out.
Okay.
It just means from the outset I'm not picking what the ending is. I probably won't have any idea where the ending is going to be near the beginning, but about 3/4 of the way through the campaign, maybe like 20 sessions in, I probably know where it's going to go.
Okay. I do tend to keep in my player notes, not just things like... Go ahead.
I was going to say, instead of what you just described as like a closed matrix storytelling, you called it, I take a dungeon world approach that Sly Flourish was also talking about that I like. Yep. Which I also expanded on from some other sources. And I do 3 to 5 fronts. Are you familiar with fronts?
No.
Okay, basically, it's like, they call them fronts because it's like fighting a war on multiple fronts.
Okay.
So, I have 3 to 5 villains or villainous factions. I give them a goal. I give them the next 3 steps of progress if the players don't oppose them of what happens. And I do these bullet form. They'll be fairly quick. And then consequences of what happens to the world if they accomplish their goals unhindered by the players.
Cool.
And then I have like a front toolbox list, and I do resources, important lieutenants, personnel, which would be like, what type of goons they have working for them, etc.
Yeah, right.
And what capabilities they have. But, it's all shorthand notes. It's not like I'm writing up detailed stat blocks here. Major pieces of equipment I should keep in mind if they've got some evil artifact or something, I'll want to make a note of that so I remember who's got it. Any locations they control. So if they've got like control over certain territory of the city, I'll write in what that territory is. Information that they have that they can use as a weapon, either against the PCs or against their other opponents.
I suppose I should point out that I do, in the player notes, I do maintain a couple of other things that I guess aren't strictly player notes, but that I write in the player notes. Because to me, the psychology of the player determines the rest of your game. So I have, you mentioned like important magical objects that somebody might have. And maybe a special siege weapon or something. If the players...
This would be stuff the enemy factions have, not the players.
Right, I know, but it made me think of it. If the players end up with a quest item, an important, what Final Fantasy would call a key item, I keep track of those, what they do, what they're for, and who currently has it. And this is important should, say, a player die and the party decide not to loot his body for some reason. Somebody, some NPC has to loot that body and reintroduce that object to the plot at some point, because it's important. And I do tend to keep note of...
How often do you have MacGuffin items that are plot critical? Because I don't do that often.
Frequently, but I also tend to throw them in MacGuffin items that mean nothing, just to confuse the players. It's fun.
Okay, all right.
Because if every time...
Well, unless I'm doing like a Jackie Chan Adventures quest for the Chinese Zodiac talisman type thing, I don't normally do a lot of stuff with MacGuffins that are plot critical. Mm-hmm. It's more like, this is a major weapon that the villain is going to use against the players, or these are some random tools that the players may or may not find that could help them accomplish their goals, but it's not critical either way. Right
now, the players have a ruby the size of my fist with a bunch of writing on it in a language that they can't identify, but they can read. The inscription's not finished yet. One of the characters has bothered to go out of his way to learn how to finish it, so he can finish inscribing it. They have a bunch of colored rocks in different colors that I made different NPCs get all excited about, and some other NPCs go, those rocks are worthless. One of them has an orange key that is obnoxiously large. One of them has a metal plate that if you put your hands on it, it can show you the lives of your ancestors, and a pile of other stuff. Only a couple of those things have any plot value, but the party thinks they're all super important, which is fun. They'll go out of their way to keep them safe. Because if, say, the mage carrying the strange Ruby Fabergé egg thingy dies, and I reintroduce the Fabergé egg thingy, if I only do that to plot items, they'll immediately know that Fabergé egg thingy is super important. And I lose the illusion of... I just lose the illusion. So I've been known to introduce way more... You can't see my air quotes right now, but quest items than you actually go out of my way to restore some of them.
But quest items are a routine thing to show up in your campaign, right?
This one, yeah. Not all the time, but this particular campaign. And I tend to keep track in the player notes of NPCs that the players really loved. Whether it was because they loved their prices or the way I role-played them or whatever. An NPC that for some reason got extra player engagement. Then over the next week, I'll kick that over with my friends and family and try and figure out what it was. Like one player at a time will psychoanalyze my friends to try and figure out why the whole group loved that NPC, or conversely, how come only two of them loved that NPC. And once we figure that out and I test it in a different game, can I kill that NPC for a decisive emotional response from the players? If I throw him in prison, will they go save him? Right, that kind of thing.
Okay. So for me, those sorts of things are either in my outline for what fronts are going to be doing, or they're things that I have thrown onto random event tables, because I use random event tables.
Cool.
Yeah, I like random event tables. I don't like knowing how everything's going to turn out. So, like, instead of me deciding which which enemies plots are going to move forward in the background this session, I will roll for that. The players may not be going after it, but I'll roll to see which one's going to be out of my 3 to 5 fronts, villainous fronts. And I'll also roll other times throughout the session. Like I think I mentioned to you the other day when we were talking that I had like an Underdark encounters table, and they weren't all combat.
Yes, you did tell me that.
Yeah, so I've got several tables broken down into categories, unlike how I know a lot of other people just have one big table with everything in it.
Mm-hmm.
But so I've got like combat encounters, I've got social encounters, I've got a list of plot relevant encounters, and so I roll on one table that's just like a percentage to tell me which table I'm rolling on after that, and then I roll on the other table afterwards. And if I do something, then I cross it off the list so I don't roll it next time.
Oh, I have a book in the other room I have got to recommend to you. You're going to love it. I just remember what it's called right now. I'll look it up and get back to you. If you love tables that can lead you to other tables, oh, you're going to love it. It's like a couple hundred pages, and it can generate every single thing for your game. Players, everything from the PCs to the traps to the kinds of stones this room is made out of. You name it.
Are you talking about the AEG Ultimate Toolbox? Because I've seen that one.
Maybe. It's a guy on the cover holding up on his back like something like that. No, I forget what it's called.
Not the one I'm thinking of. Okay.
Anyway, we just flew right by 15 minutes. If you would summarize how you feel about prep and how much you should and that kind of thing in a sentence or two, that would be great.
Sure, yeah. So I would say probably, unlike how you go really light on prep,
mm-hmm.
I probably do about a page for the session, a page rough notes overall for the campaign, and then maybe another page for each major villainous front. And the villainous front pages will get updated as the campaign progresses, but most of that page will stay the same, but little bits will get updated. And then beyond that, I would just say if you're going to prep anything, prep reusable stuff that you can use in multiple campaigns. It takes a little bit more time up front, but those random tables of random events and like faction rosters of they have these sorts of guys working for them. All of those are easily repurposed in future campaigns, save you lots of time and effort. And they let you sort of improvise on the fly with more detail than personally I'm able to do just improv.
Thank you so much.
All right.
And there you have it. How much is too much? How much heightens your game? How high does your game need to be? I don't know. It's your game. Later days.